International economic consultant Professor Hiroyuki Hino has told Kenyans that while the vision to Singaporean status is achievable, it cannot happen without curbing corruption at all levels of governance. Hino, one of the experts who advised President William Ruto on a vision framework for the country post-2030, told the National Conversation meeting at the KICC that both the public and private sectors must invest in human capital, debt control, and do what it takes to speed up economic growth. Here is Seth Olale with that report.
Leo umeona Kasongo akienda kuzindua at beyond 2030. Lakini hiyo sio ile alikuwa anataka kuzindua. Alikuwa anazindua kubadilisha katiba. Na leo amesema anataka kubadilisha katiba. Leo tunamwambia tukiwa Kajiado, katiba hatutabadilisha. Ile kitu tunabadilisha ni wewe William Ruto. Hatutabadilisha Vision 2030. Ile tutabadilisha ni wewe Kasongo. Sababu kabla tufike Vision 2030, tunataka kufika Vision 2027. Na si 2027 kumpeleka nyumbani? Tunampeleka nyumbani. Hatubadilishi Rigathi Gachagua. Yule tunabadilisha ni wewe Kasongo. Na
when Vision 2030 was developed, it was developed before the new constitution. The new constitution provides us with a better and clearer framework on how to think long term. And therefore, it is important that we engage in this exercise in the context of a new constitution. A new constitution that does not request us to consult the people. No, it is mandatory.
We can have a state department in charge of Vision 2030. Very soon, you will hear another state department in charge of Vision 2060. A total mess to the infrastructure, to the funding infrastructure of our country. We are going to have money being channeled to 2060. They will create a department. They will create it. They will make it a PS. Very soon, somebody is going to get a job out of this nonsense. We are taking Kenyans for a ride. And this party is going to drive the change that this generation. You can lie to some people all the time. You can even lie to some people sometime. But you can never lie to all the people all the time. The Gen Z, the Gen Alpha, the Millennial, they have refused to be lied. You lied to our mothers and the fathers. You've lied to our parents all these years. The new generation has refused to be lied to.
Ile uongo mmeambiwa na William Samoei Ruto that tutafika Singapore, it is all found here. This is a book. Inaitwa From Third to First World by Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew ni rais, baba wa taifa, the founding father of Singapore. Ndo ameandika hii kitabu. Kenyans, if you want to know whether 2060 will work, or whether, as I believe, it's not 2060 Vision 2060, it's rather 20 million youths in 2060 working for 60 billionaires, lazima usome hii kitabu. Zile bookshop ya kina Nuria bookstore, textbook center, you guys, you really need to stock this. Angalieni tu, wacheni niwafungulie tu dibaji. Inaitwa table of content kwa lugha ya Kiswahili, dibaji. Going it alone. Before nianze, Kenyans, nchi ya Singapore ilipata uhuru kutoka Uingereza mwaka 1965. Okay, actually kutoka nchi ya Malaysia. They were expelled. Singapore doesn't have a single natural resource. The only thing they had, Lee Kuan Yew alisema kwa hii kitabu, was the people. Singapore mwaka wa 1975, they jailed their Minister for National Development. I think so. Mwaka 1986, they jailed their minister again. 4 years in jail. Nchi ya Singapore, mambo ya corruption haiko. They don't call it Vision 2030, Vision 2040. They call it economic plan. Okay? This is how Singapore has been. And now ikafika mpaka level gani? It is now a financial hub competing na kina nchi ya New York, financial center, soko za New York, soko za Zuri.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a conversation that was begun about a week ago when the president made an alleged State of the Nation address and brought a new wet dream to be sold to the people of the Republic of Kenya. Vision 2060. Yesterday, which was on Wednesday, 12th of the month of August 2026, he held a consultative meeting in State House and the other one at KICC. The meeting was for the purpose of doing what? Holding consultation on the issue of coming up with a new Vision 2060 to actually address the issues facing Kenya beyond Vision 2030. But ladies and gentlemen, something has been constant. William Ruto began with Singapore. From Singapore, we are now in Vision 2060. Now the question is, how do you achieve all this? He actually stopped selling the Singapore dream. Now he is selling Vision 2060. But the question has been asked to answer again. For you to be like Singapore, you have to do what Singapore did. It became a nation that did not actually tolerate any corruption. But one thing for sure has been revealed through this Vision 2060 that William Ruto is currently selling. What has been revealed is that William Ruto is working an angle to ensure that he amends the Constitution of Kenya to give him more time in office, to actually rubbish and do away with the 5-year term limit or the 2-term limit, the 10-year term limit, the maximum term limit for a president in the Republic of Kenya. That is why, in different occasions, you have heard William Ruto saying that if given time in 20 years, I will make Kenya the next Singapore. If given time in the next 20 years, I mean, how can you tell us 20 years, yet you have 10 years in power? I mean, you served your 10 years as the DP, and you are serving your first 5 years as the president. So if you were to do anything, you would have done it the first 10 years as the deputy president, and the first 5 years as the president, to prove to people that actually if given another 5 years, you can actually deliver. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is a statement that has been made by none other than Senior Counsel Ahmed Nasri Abdullahi in regards to this Vision 2060 by William Ruto and the Singapore Dream. This is a man that has been supporting William Ruto all along. He is among the few advocates or the few senior lawyers in the Republic of Kenya who have been staunch supporters of William Ruto's government. But now, he also sees that William Ruto is daydreaming and wet dreaming. But before we diverge into what Senior Counsel Ahmed Nasri Abdullahi had to say, let's look at what Kenyans are saying in regards to this Vision 2060 by President William Ruto. President William Ruto's push to develop a new long-term national development blueprint has triggered a political storm, with critics questioning its timing, rationale, and the government's record in implementing Vision 2030. The controversy follows the launch of the National Conversation on Kenya's Future Beyond Vision 2030, which seeks to engage Kenyans in defining the country's development priorities after the expiry of the current blueprint Vision 2030. The initiative has been defended by Kenya Kwanza leaders as an attempt to plan beyond electoral cycles and ensure that successive administrations work towards a common national objective. But opponents argue that the government should first account for what happened to Vision 2030 before embarking on another ambitious promise. Wiper Patriotic Front Vice Chair and Makueni Governor Mutula Kilonzo Jr. questioned the wisdom of looking so far ahead when millions of Kenyans are struggling with immediate economic hardships. We don't need Vision 2060. The majority of Kenyans don't need what they will eat, don't know what they will eat tomorrow. and many young people have lost hope. We cannot be talking about Vision 2060 under these circumstances, Kilonzo Jr. said. Now, the timing of Dr. Ruto's launch has also raised questions among politicians and civil society actors, particularly over why the government is beginning the process nearly 3 years before Vision 2030 formally reaches its target horizon. Tatu MP Geoffrey Wandeto said the country must first confront corruption, which he described as a threat capable of undermining any development blueprint. If we do not address the elephant in the room, corruption, it will hit Vision 2030, Vision 2060, Vision 2100 for breakfast. He also questioned whether there had been sufficient evaluation of Vision 2030 to establish what worked, what failed, and what would be salvaged. I have not even seen any serious stock taking on Vision 2030. What went wrong? What went right? What went wrong? What can be improved? What can be salvaged? He posed. Now, the controversy has also acquired a constitutional dimension, with lawyer Harrison Kenyajui questioning the choice of 2060 and suggesting that the proposed timeline could be influenced by the African Union's Agenda 2063. Kenyajui asked why Kenya was developing a Vision 2060 rather than Vision 2050 and alleged that the initiative could eventually be used to create an avenue for constitutional change. His claims have, however, not been accompanied by evidence showing that the government intends to use the new development blueprint as a vehicle for constitutional amendment. But we all in our own minds can actually see through it. Now, the Consumers Federation of Kenya CONFEC Secretary General Stephen Mutaro also warned against any attempt to use a national development vision to justify constitutional changes. Mr. Mutaro argued that the 2010 Constitution established a rigid framework for amendments, including public participation and for certain provisions a referendum. He cited the Supreme Court's 2022 decision in the BBI case, arguing that while the court rejected the idea of an implied, unamendable basic structure, it affirmed the importance of the Constitution's tied amendment procedures. Now, those thinking they can amend the Constitution to entrench a mandatory revisions are daydreaming, Mutoro said. He maintained that Kenya's constitutional architecture, including devolution, the Bill of Rights, public finance controls, and checks on executive power, could not simply be altered through an ordinary political process. The opposition has also questioned whether another grand development promise is necessary for Vision 2030 when Vision 2030 remains incomplete. Wiper Patriotic Front spokesperson Wakili Ndegwa Njiru said Kenya should first obtain an honest account of the achievements and failures of Vision 2030. Kenya does not need another grand promise while the commitments already made to its people remain substantially unfulfilled. He argued that constitutionalism, the rule of law, human rights, accountable government, democratic freedoms, and social justices should not be treated as distant objectives. But Kenya Kwanza leaders have rejected the criticism, insisting that long-term planning should be dictated by election cycles, shouldn't be dictated by election cycles. Nandi Senator Samson Cheregai said Vision 2030 itself was prepared through public participation and questioned why politicians were opposing the new initiative. Says in our party we look at the generations that will come tomorrow, not thinking about next year's politics. Unatuambia you look at the generation to come. Yet this generation that you have right now, even feeding them or giving them jobs, you can't do that. Aldai MP Meriani Kitani similarly defended the timing, noting that work on Vision 2030 began in 2008 under retired President Mwai Kibaki. Vision 2030 itself began in 2006 when Kibaki was in power, and nobody complained that we should wait until after 2007 elections to begin it, Kitani said. But look at it in this manner. Kibaki in 2007 initiated Vision 2030. But in 2010, he himself initiated constitutional changes that allowed that gave way to the 2010 Constitution, which actually limited him from ever vying for the office of the president again, which put the term limit of the president to 2 terms. 5 years for the first term and 5 years for the second term. And that was done deal. Which means the man, yes, he started Vision 2030, but he was not greedy to ensure that he remains in power so that he can implement it until 2030 comes. He initiated it, and in 2010, put in a constitution that blocks anybody that thinks they can stay in power forever. And in 2012, Kibaki exited office after completing his 2 terms. Now, on their part, the MPs allied to the DCP party on Thursday accused Ruto of breaking his covenant with Kenyans for 4 years into his administration and challenged the government to provide evidence to counter claims about its record. The statement comes days after the party leader, Rigathi Gachagua, issued a public accountability and audit statement of Kenya Kwanza regime, and a day after government-allied legislatures issued a rebuttal to the DCP's audit. The Gachagua-allied MP said they stand by the statement read by the party leader. Now, according to the MPs allied to DCP, the government-allied legislatures, in their rebuttal to Mr. Gashagua's address, failed to address the issues he raised. Instead, chose to dwell on petty and trivial matters. Collectively, the government is scared of the truth, of its people, and of the reality. They have responded to illusions, personality, and fear. They are confused and have run out of ideas. Medhu challenged the government-allied MPs. Senator Medhu said that Kenyans were still concerned with the rising cost of living, tax burden, a shrinking job market, and growing public debt. He also questioned the government's claim of an improving economy, saying ordinary Kenyans were yet to feel the benefit. I mean, why are universities, schools, students, and parents still struggling with funding if the economy is doing well? Is SHA actually delivering better and more affordable health care than the Kenyans had before? Give us the figures on access, claims, and outstanding bills. The DCP Secretary General designated. The DCP Secretary General said. Now, on the specific allegation made by Gachagua, the government expenditure, procurement, and business allegedly associated with those in power, Senator Medhu challenged the government to identify with claims were false and whether Gashagua's claims were false and provide evidence to support that. But let's get back to Vision 2060. This is what one senior counsel, Ahmed Nasri Abdullahi, a man that has been supporting William Ruto for the longest time, I want to say. And I want you to listen to him. He says, I agree. Singapore without rule of law, zero tolerance to jurispresa judges, zero tolerance to the $4 billionaire and their ilk, zero tolerance to corruption is fantasy in La La Land. Singapore was built on rule of law and zero tolerance to corruption. The skyscrapers came later, much later. And he continues saying, William Ruto, as a leader who has put the vision forward about Vision 2030, he should actually foresee the eradication of corruption in the Republic of Kenya. So let me ask, we speak about corruption every day. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission have files piled up in their offices, cases at the High Court of Kenya, implicating cabinet secretaries, members of parliament, governors, and civil servants on corruption allegations. Tell me, can you actually say that William Ruto will actually implement Vision 2030 and Vision 2060 and make Kenya Singapore if he has never addressed the issues of corruption since he came into power? I mean, William Ruto promised to deal a blow to the corrupt leaders when he came to power from 2022 until now 2026. Tell me of a single cabinet secretary that has been arrested over corruption. Instead, when they are exposed of corruption, the president is on the front line trying to defend their corrupt dealings because he himself is a corrupt individual. Mtazamaji, ni hayo kwa sasa. But the real story behind Vision 2060, is not about making Kenya Singapore. It's about giving William Ruto a chance to actually carry out a referendum and a constitutional amendment so that he can actually remove the limitation that have been put by the 2010 Constitution, limiting him to a 5 years in office for his first term and a second term for 5 years for only 10 years. So that he will argue, if given limitless time and given more time for the first time, let's say 7 years, then he will be able to implement Vision 2060. I mean, in his first State of the Nation address, the man went ahead to quote how Singapore is implementing its development as an example. He came out of the Singapore and went to, he came out of Singapore and he did not quote Singapore, he was quoting Zimbabwe. He came away from Singapore and started quoting Zimbabwe. Why Zimbabwe? Because Zimbabwe, in the month of June this year, 2026, actually amended its constitution, extending the presidential term limit from 5 years to 7 years in office for both the president, MPs, senators, and whoever is in power. So that is what William Ruto is playing at here. Na ndio maana tunamwambia watu si wajinga bwana. Kenyans are learned and Kenyans are enlightened and they see beyond your rhetorics and your lies. Mtazamaji, I would love to hear your take. Leave a comment on the comment section. See you in our next video. This is the Kenyan Daily Report.
We don't need a Vision 2060. Wacha nikuambie tu ukweli. There are Kenyans who don't know what they are going to do tomorrow. The majority of Kenyans don't know what they are going to eat tomorrow. So we can't have a statement about Vision 2060. People are killing themselves, young people. Suicide has increased. Young people have lost hope. Mr. President, hakuna Vision 2060, my friend. Speak to young people and ask them, degree holders. I had young people, Bishop in Thange, because of suicide. They had a vigil. 24-year-old graduates, 25. They don't want to be told about 2060. They want to be told where they can earn an honest living tomorrow.
Ile upuzi mmekuwa mkiambua kila siku hapa. Hatunajua tuko Singapore. Tutaenda Singapore. Hii nchi ita develop, hakutakuwa na corruption. Leo tutakuwa tuna empower Kenyans with what is inside here. Ukweli lazima tuambiane, si ndio wa Kenya? Lakini tafakari ya siku before ni wafungulie hii kitu. What if elections in Kenya are just like a pageantry contest, ama popularity contest, ama lottery contest, just to determine which manipulation worked the best? Tutafakari hayo. Haya, wacha tufungue hii. So yes, Kenyans, ile uongo mmeambiwa na William Samoei Ruto that tutafika Singapore, it is all found here. This is a book. Inaitwa From Third to First World by Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew ni rais, baba wa taifa, the founding father of Singapore. Ndo ameandika hii kitabu. Kenyans, if you want to know whether 2060 will work, or whether, as I believe, it's not 2060 Vision 2060, it's rather 20 million youths in 2060 working for 60 billionaires, lazima usome hii kitabu. Zile bookshop ya kina Nuria bookstore, textbook center, you guys, you really need to stock this. Angalieni tu, wacheni niwafungulie tu dibaji. Inaitwa table of content kwa lugha ya Kiswahili, dibaji. Going it alone. Before nianze, Kenyans, nchi ya Singapore ilipata uhuru kutoka Uingereza mwaka 1965. Okay, actually kutoka nchi ya Malaysia. They were expelled. Singapore doesn't have a single natural resource. The only thing they had, Lee Kuan Yew alisema kwa hii kitabu, was the people. Singapore mwaka wa 1975, they jailed their Minister for National Development. I think so. Mwaka 1986, they jailed their minister again. 4 years in jail.
Nchi ya Singapore mambo ya corruption haiko. They don't call it Vision 2030, Vision 2040. They call it economic plan. Okay? This is how Singapore has been. And now ikafika mpaka level gani? It is now a financial hub competing na kina nchi ya New York, financial center, soko za New York, soko za Zurich na soko za Uingereza, financial markets. Kenyans, sikizeni hapa. Going it alone, building an army from the scratch, surviving without a hinterland, creating a financial center, a fair, not a welfare society, nurturing and attracting talent. Na kuambia kama kuna nchi they can never tolerate corruption ni nchi ya Singapore. Wakenya, hii kitabu ni kubwa sana but it's worth it. Ile uongo kina ma-DVD, yule jamaa akishiba huwa anasahau watu wake anaitwa nani? Moses Masika Wetangula, kina Kimani Ichung'wah, Moses Kuria, Eden Duale. You thought, unajua Kenyans, hii kitabu nilikuwa nimesoma. I had the blessings to kupitia hii kitabu nikiwa campus pale Maseno in the library. Na leo nataka tu kuambia ukweli. If you really want to know a working society, if you really want to understand ile Singapore tunapelekwa, ama tunapelekwa Ushelisheli ama kisiwa cha Comoros, ama tunaelekea Singapore, unafaa kusoma hii kitabu. It is written in a very simple, easy to understand language. Na imeandikwa na baba wa taifa mwenyewe. Hakuna hii ni author, sijui ni mtu wa tatu, sijui sauti ya pili. No, hii ni sauti ya kwanza. Baba mwanzilishi wa taifa la Singapore. Mtajua ukweli. Singapore is a nation that values meritocracy. Singapore is a nation that pays its top leaders so competitively so that they will remove any excuses for you to do corruption. Actually, waziri wao mmoja alijinyonga, he committed suicide after he was found guilty of engaging in bribery. Anyway, who are we Kenyans? We are the only nation who believe politicians who failed in their family can succeed at leading the nation. We are dealing with people in other countries who are good in their thoughts, but Kenyan politicians, they are so good in bed and speaking bad words. Mununue hii kitabu Kenyans.
Is not kind.
I was trying to be more diplomatic.
But in our days,
in the grading system, you don't exist, so you know.
Yeah, in our days, that's an E. Okay, that's an E. You cannot ask to go to the next class with an E. And this administration is asking to go to the next class. He's asking us to talk about the subjects, the curriculum of the next class with an E. Because the curriculum of the next class is Agenda 2060. You see, fulfill 2030. Come on, at least with a C. Give us 55, 56%. And then after you fulfill 2030, see, I am the right person to talk about 2060. Bro, you've not even fulfilled the things in the last 4 years, the things you said you will do. And you are at 11%. And you want to talk about the things the next administration will do, and the next administration after the next administration will do. I don't think this is the right administration to have that conversation.
Kenya, very few Kenyans can travel. I have been to Singapore 5 times. I know what the story behind the Singapore development. I have read and studied Singapore development model. There were no corruption was the first thing. Education system was the second. Manufacturing and the value addition was the third. And the bureaucratic institutions, and also locating your country geostrategically to tap into the global flow of income. That's why there is banking industry, there is insurance industry headquartered in Singapore. Which insurance industry is headquartered here in Kenya? Which banking, international banking, is headquartered here? We must put up systems that will ensure we travel the path of Singapore. I want Kenyans to refuse to believe that Kenya will achieve the milestone of Singapore under the conmanship of William Ruto. They must refuse to believe. Singapore has traveled a path that had even ministers were jailed. Show me one minister in Rutos government who has been jailed before you talk about Singapore. You say Singapore, you show us you jailed Aden Duale. You say Singapore, you show us you've jailed so and so. Every person, any minister, even if he's your friend, is your brother, Singapore jailed ministers. Ministers were not allowed to even meet investors abroad. We see our ministers crossing all over and meeting investors. This is not, we totally reject as a party the conmanship that is being perpetrated on the people of Kenya. We have heard this before. Mwai Kibaki launched Vision 2030. Where is the vision? Where is the achievement? Why do we continue lying to Kenyans? Every given regime. Every regime comes with a manifesto. Instead of fulfilling the manifesto, they turn into launching a vision that is beyond their lifetime in this on earth.
Bishop wetu ya kwamba tufanye siasa ya staarabu, tufanye tuache hii mambo ya vita, maguns yote ikome, haitasaidia wa Kenya. Sisi tunataka Kenya moja na sisi wote ni mandugu na dada. Hakuna mwingine mkubwa, sisi wote ni wa Kenya. Hii uchaguzi tu ni mashindano. Ula atashinda ni Mkenya. Na sisi wote ni watoto wa Kenya. Kitu tunaomba viongozi tu tukue na heshima, tuheshimiane, usa sera, wacha kuuza sura ama jina. Uza sera, utakuja ufanyia nini wananchi? Kwa mambo ya elimu utafanya nini? Kwa mambo ya maji utafanya nini? Kwa mambo ya stima utafanya nini? Kwa mambo ya kutafutia vijana nafasi ya kazi na ajira, nafasi ya kina mama utafanya sehemu gani? Hiyo ndio sera kubwa kuliko sera ya matusi na kutumia guns katika mikutano ya kisiasa. Kwa sababu kanisa limesema na viongozi wa dini wamesema this country is greater than all of us. Sisi wote tuko hii Kenya, lakini wazazi wetu na watoto wetu wa vizazi vichavyo wanataka kupata nchi ambaye ni nchi ambaye itakuja kuheshimika katika taifa letu la Afrika na dunia yote. So mimi nataka niulize wale viongozi ambao mwaka kesho, na padri wetu wamesema vizuri, mwaka kesho ni mwaka wa uchaguzi. Lakini nataka niulize viongozi wenzangu, let us not think about next election. Let us think about the next generation. Rais amesema tuko Vision 2060, tusaidie rais hii Wednesday tarehe 12. Kenya amesema itaketi tuongee Vision 2060. Tunataka Kenya gani? Tunataka Kenya ambaye ni kama Singapore, ambaye tutapitia Canaan. Hiyo ndio Kenya ambaye iko na asali, iko na maziwa na iko na baraka. Tunataka Kenya ambaye Wakenya hawalali kwa sababu ya njaa. Tunataka Kenya ambaye kila mtu wako na nafasi sawa. Tunapigana na ufisadi. That is the country we want under Vision 2060 ambaye rais anataka wa Kenya. So Wednesday hata hii kesho leo jioni, father, ukiona nikiharakisha pia tunakutana kama ile parliamentary group ya bunge kule Naivasha, tukiongozwa na party leader wetu rais na party leader wa ODM. Tunaketi kama wabunge, tunataka kuona tunaweza leta mabadiliko gani ya kuhakikisha taifa letu imeenda mbele.